Awesome. Yeah. So it's around 4:05, and I think people are still coming in. Maybe it just ended class. So we'll go ahead and get started. But I wanted to welcome you all to our second workday. And to this in our meeting today, we're having some student entrepreneurs who have successfully launched startups or working on their startups. And we wanted to provide this sort of perspective to you all to learn from their experiences, their mistakes, but also their successes. So I'll hand it off to David, who'll kind of intro the speakers, and then we'll get into intros from the speakers as well as any questions.
All right, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. So let me just share this. Okay, so instead of me kind of introing the panelists that we have today, honestly, I'd just like to pass it over to them to give their own intros and yeah, explain to all of our teams, you know, what they've been working on and kind of their experience, and yeah, and then we can go into more specific questions about what it's like to be a student entrepreneur at Georgia Tech. So I guess we could start off with I don't know if Richard's here. So John, do you want to start off?
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, I'm John Gatuso. I went to Tech from 2010 to 2015, and I was a mechanical engineer in school, but we started our company Fixed while we were fourth years at Tech. And so we make a small device that plugs into your car, and whenever you have a problem, it'll tell you in simple and understandable terms what's wrong. And so we primarily sell direct to consumer and have luckily had a lot of success with that over the last couple of years. We sold a little over 2 million devices and have recently introduced a premium offering in our app that allows people to unlock certain features for paying a yearly subscription. So we'll have to talk a little more about our journey kind of while we were in school and then transitioning to after school.
Awesome. Sohan, you want to give a little intro?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, everyone. My name's Sohan. I started attending Georgia Tech in fall of 2017. And until about last year in the spring semester, I was still taking classes as a CS major. Since then, I've joined Gatherly and been doing that kind of full time, much to my mom's disappointment because she wants me to graduate. But yeah, at Gatherly, I can also let Kiati expand on this more because she probably does a better job of explaining our platform. But we're building essentially a more interactive online event experience that hopefully will be something like what we're using right now, Zoom. So yeah, at Gatherly, I've been working on engineering as well as product.
Cool. I guess we can go to the other Gatherly co-founder, Kiati.
Sure. Thanks for the intro. Quick intro on Gatherly there, Sohan. But I'm Kiati, one of the other co-founders of Gatherly. Currently, I guess I would be like a third-year mechanical engineering major. Timeline's all up in the air now. But as Sohan said, we are an online events platform looking to increase engagement and provide new and interactive or innovative ways for interaction between attendees. So that's really what we're working on. And so it's been a pretty interesting year. You know, the online events market is expanding while COVID is still around. So we'll see how this plays out.
Awesome. And lastly, Vidur.
You're muted. I'm sorry. This happens quite a bit to me in Zoom. Yeah, my name is Vidur. So I started attending Georgia Tech spring 2019. I transferred over from Purdue. In that time, about a year later, I joined PodPal as a founding engineer. PodPal is essentially a podcast management and collaboration platform for DIY and podcasting agencies that we're working on right now. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, we can talk more about this.
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess since we've gone through all the intros, so we do want to make this session as valuable as possible for all of our teams that we have here. So right now, I'd really just like to open up the floor for anyone to ask questions to any of our panelists here, just regarding what it's like to be a student entrepreneur, or any of the experiences that they've had. So yeah, I guess I just open it up right now. So feel free to unmute.
So wait, John, for Fixed, did you ever present at the Atlanta Tech Village, by the way? Like for the startup summer school, like you had like one of your team members there. I think I remember seeing Fixed there for like the customer validation phase.
I know we've like attended the startup, or back when they had Startup Village or whatever.
Yeah.
There was we had a I think what it might have been was when we were in school, there was another person that was involved in the company, and she, after school, she didn't want to continue with it, and so that probably was her. But
yeah, no, I was saying it's like such a small world. One question I had was how is it like how many startups have you done before then? Like was it a big process to getting to revenue, or like I'm just interested in like how startups can get into the revenue side, if they should start in revenue, like asking for money, or just like give coupons to a bunch of people, something like that.
yeah, no, so I've only done one startup. Fixed is the only one that I've ever done, but I was never like I always wanted to go work for Ford in like college. I was really into cars and was in some of the racing clubs at Tech. I was the president of Rec Racing, if any of y'all are familiar with it. But and so I was not really into startups. It was really a friend of mine who kind of got me into it, and then just kind of fell in love with the idea and ran with it. But from a revenue perspective, I think it depends highly on your business model. Like for us, we sell a device through e-commerce, and so it naturally lended itself to revenue right from the start, and it allowed us to bootstrap the company. So like we haven't raised any outside capital because we from day one could start selling this device. We sold it for a profit, and we were able to kind of bootstrap the company through that. But I think it really depends on that business model. If you're any sort of type like of SaaS product or e-commerce product, like it's a really good idea to charge from day one. But if you're trying to build something that is more kind of like ads driven, or has a separate kind of business model, those definitely you have to start considering, hey, can I really try to optimize for getting users and engagement, and then advertisers will come along with that. So I think it really depends on your business model, but when you kind of layer in monetization, but some are just really conducive to doing it right out of the gate. And those are obviously easier to do because everyone will always tell you your thing is cool, but like when you ask them when you ask them to pay for it is when the rubber really kind of hits the road. Because we had so many people that would hear the idea and be like, that's awesome, like so like sign me up, like let me know when it's available, and we would like pull a Square reader out of our pocket and be like, buy it right now, like give us $50. And then a lot of people like ran away at that point. But
I love that.
the validation was like some people pulled out their credit card and said, yeah, sure, like I'll buy it. And we didn't have it at the time, so we actually had to like stop them before we swiped the card and be like, hey, like we're gonna put you on an email list, like we'll email you when we have it. But yeah.
I'm going to ask the worst question. What's your 5-year plan?
For Fixed, let's see. In kind of as we think about the like short, medium, long term of the company, our real goal is to help prevent any driver from getting ripped off at a repair shop. And so kind of where we're at now, thinking about kind of like 5 years is in that medium term kind of range, I think it's really about how do we continue executing on our go-to-market strategy? So we know when people get the device in their hands, they really enjoy it. They come back, like about 40% of our customers are still using the product after a year, which if you've seen consumer retention rates, like that's pretty decent. But so the idea is like, how can we get more people exposed to the brand? So a lot of it's leaning into marketing at different versions of scale. So a lot of our sales have been driven by performance marketing to date, but as we are looking to continue scaling, it's figuring out what are those other channels that can drive additional brand exposure, like TV and radio and those kind of things. And then from the product side, like our goal is to take people from the moment they have a problem with their car to the moment that it's repaired. And then take all the headache and worry and anxiety out of that process. And so as we think about executing over the next kind of 5 years, it's really just talking to customers and trying to identify what of those things can we help with. And then of the things that we can't automate with software, what are ways that we can hack the experience to make it better. So like an example of this right now is we can't detect every problem that happens with your vehicle, but we have a call center of mechanics that if you have a problem we can't detect, you can pick up the phone and call these guys that are ASE master techs and be able to ask them any question about the problems you're having with their car. So I'd say, yeah, it's really just executing on the product vision and then executing on the go-to-market strategy.
So I meant more, what's your plan? That was a good elevator pitch, but like, are you going to be at the company in 5 years? Is there going to be a company in 5 years?
I sure hope so. Hope I don't get fired. My boss is a real jerk, but I think with anything, like, I think one of the things I didn't appreciate a lot when I was in school is we're 7 years into fixed right now. And so we're just starting to see like the seeds of the things we've planted, like really start to take off. And so I think over the next 5 years, like I'm really excited about the growth that we're seeing and the opportunity in front of us. And so I'm very excited to be involved for that kind of that journey. But when I got started in it, I think the biggest thing I wanted to do was just learn. And you learn very different things when you're starting a company and getting something off the ground than you learn when you're scaling and you're getting initial product market fit and you're getting your product out into customers' hands. And then you learn very different things that we're learning now as we're scaling the team to be able to going from 3 people to 10 people to 25 people to 100. It's very, very different phases. And so I'm really excited about learning that. Like right now, I'm a pretty terrible manager. Like I'm very good at numbers and math and stuff, but I'm very bad at people. And so that's a skill that I'm gonna have to learn over the next 5 years, and excited for it because that's gonna kind of lay the foundation for wanting to lead bigger and bigger teams and do better things in the future.
Awesome. What are the other guys? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Fred, my other co-founder, Fred and Julian are the 2 other co-founders, and as far as I know, they're on board as well. I know like it's always one of these things you kind of see in startups is where some people really like the early stage and they don't like, it's very rare that you see kind of like the founder CEO that you see of like in the news, like the Jeff Bezos, the Mark Zuckerberg, the Bill Gates, the someone who can take it from starting it to multi-billion-dollar company is actually extremely rare. And so a lot of times people have a niche that they really like maybe they like operating companies at scale, or maybe they like really starting stuff and getting stuff off the ground. And so inevitably like people just get to a point where they want to continue doing the thing they're really good at or the thing that gives them kind of joy. And so I could definitely see, like, I think Julian's much more of a builder. He like really loves the early stage stuff, but he's also interested in kind of expanding his skill set. So I don't know, you'd have to ask them, but I think they're around.
All right, I actually wanted to take this time to ask our other 3 panelists the same question. Where do you see your startup in 5 years, and where do you see yourself in 5 years at that startup? So whoever wants to take it away.
Yeah, I can go first. So I mean, always, at Gatherly, there's always like one big question that we always get from a lot of people. It's that right now, it feels like we're kind of thriving because everyone's kind of at home. There are still COVID restrictions, so we're able to do online events. What's going to happen when everyone's vaccinated and things go back in person, because people like to meet up in person. That's pretty obvious. And I mean, honestly, that's what we want too. But I think our CEO puts this in a really good way. He says that not providing a hybrid or online solution to online events is like a diner that doesn't provide vegetarian options. In 2021 and onwards, it's just kind of not going to be, it's just not going to fly. So we've seen a lot of event consultants, event organizers that we've talked to, that we've learned from. They've said the same things, where even though their clients are looking forward to having in-person meetings and in-person, gatherings, they'll still need a way to offer this interactive way in a digital experience to accommodate for those who maybe can't travel, things like that. So I don't know if Gatsby will be like a standalone company or if we'll, have joined forces with other of our great but many competitors out there, like Hopin, Run the World, Wonder, just like name a few. But I think that that's definitely a possibility that we could look into. So, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think Kiati did a great job like explaining on kind of Gatsby's perspective, and for the record, I guess I agree with that. I guess I'll answer the more personal aspect of the question, like where do you see yourself in 5 years relative to like your startup and everything. I think like one big lesson I've learned over the past year, kind of like getting into the startup world and then joining Gatherly, has been like something that like when I realized I learned it, I was like, I'm such an idiot, because it's like pretty basic, right? It's like what I've learned is like the easiest way to get from point A to point B is always a straight line. There's always gonna be like draws, especially like, as we're tech students, to like go and do other things, because there's always like good job opportunities and other things that pop up in your life that seem like they'll give you more optionality and like more choice. Like I know John mentioned earlier that he had like a Ford job offer or something, and that's like where he wanted to go, right? There's like always gonna be pulls like that. But like I think like for me in 5 years, I would be happy if I just continued doing what like I thought would get me the most direct path to where I want to be. So whether that's doing a startup or working at a company or something. I think for a long time in my career, I was kind of just like dancing around things. I would just be like doing an internship because my friends were doing it, and like because it was like the thing that would give me more options on the line. But I think it's like there's a lot of power in just going for the direct route.
And I think that's one of the toughest things that being a student and then right after college kind of days was like doing this startup, particularly when it was not doing so hot, and like seeing your friends like buy cars and buy houses and like have jobs where they can go on cool vacations and they go on the ski trip and you can't go, and like people want to go to fancy dinners and you can't afford it, and like that shit sucks, and it's really, really tough to kind of stick it out in those times.
Yeah, so first off, before I get into it, absolutely agree with what John and Sohan just said. I think you should realize that statistically you are primed to fail as a startup. So like that's one of the most depressing things to deal with as a founder as well. So if you are still willing to go forward with it, that shows some resilience from you as a character as well. But yeah, beyond the success rate aspect of it, as far as Podpal goes, some background on where we are right now. So we are still a pre-Series A company. Over the last year, we have been seed funded, but we are still looking for pre-Series A. So the message is that we want a working product. So we're trying to get to the working MVP as we see it right now. So as for where we see it in 5 years, since we are a SaaS startup, and in our experience, SaaS startups don't really have a tech moat, so to speak. So moats are very, very difficult to develop in SaaS startups. So the question we get asked most often is, hey, yeah, you guys have a great idea, a good working product. What happens when a Chinese knockoff comes to you and drives you out of the market by offering lower prices? So the primary goal for us is to be able to answer that question. So like what makes people want to stay with Podpal? Like we understand the value you provide as a podcast management and a collaboration platform, but what is going to make you stay? Like, is it the network of podcasters that we build as people come on? Because there certainly is a demand from our research. Spotify has over 3 million podcasts being hosted this year alone. So we do have the demand. It's more of like, how do you stay in contention? How do you stay at the top of your game will be the primary question we want to answer as a company over the next 5 years. And with that also comes the culture of like, what kind of people do we see at Podpal? What do we see Podpal becoming in terms of a team as well? I realize that's a bit of a cliche, but I think that is something that you need to answer before you like get into larger teams as well, because the why and who you are of it does matter more than what you are as well in that regard. So personally, yeah, like I'm kind of in the same line as Sohan. Both of us are CS majors, so there is a multitude of opportunities that were presented to us prior to this as well. So like you have fan companies making you offers day in and day out, and they'll continue to reach out as well. So as far as that goes, it's more like I would like to see Podpal make it to a point where we could say like, hey, we built something that is still being used today and it is ever improving. So there isn't really much of a solid personal goal if I've established one yet, but yeah, the goal is to just keep moving forward and like keep looking ahead.
That was an awesome answer. Thank you, y'all. All right. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, so for the SaaS companies here, what was like, how did you guys go out and get paid and get your initial users? Like, I know it might be different for B2B and B2C, and for context, I'm B2C. I'm trying to sell to teams, but I'm also just trying to work on individual as a start. So any advice there would be good. And for context, it's an email productivity tool that lets you email into any productivity app that you're using, straight from email on any device.
Yeah, that's a great question. So just to kind of give you an example, in the very initial days or the early stages of Gatherly, like the first few weeks, when we realized, hey, we've got, a pretty interesting product. It's kind of working. I think people might be able to start using this. So we actually reached out to people. We sat down, had a conversation, and thought, which communities could use this, who could buy this. And initially we thought that, oh, right now a lot of religious groups are having issues with like connecting because of like, church or like temple, and like they can't have like their, maybe Sunday gatherings, things like that. So we started reaching out to them a lot. We started reaching out to like high schools and middle schools and things like that. But that was back when we were a bit more inexperienced. So we were sending out all these email lists with not a lot of, results. And even the demos that we did do, they didn't really, turn into anything. So we realized that we hadn't done enough research in the market. We realized that that's not really where the money is. So in order to get started, we really do have to get a few, customers to the door. And when I was in that phase, I was reading a book, and I read a quote saying that getting the first $100 will be really, really hard, but then getting the first $1,000,000 is not that hard. It's just really hard to convince people to make that first sale and make that initial purchase. But that's really where you have to do some research, get some customer discovery. And customer discovery is really an ongoing process that will kind of never stop, because you always do want to make your product better and better.
Yeah, from Podval's perspective, a little background. So our CEO, Aaron Woods, his wife is actually a podcaster, a DIY podcaster. That's where the idea sort of seeded from, right? So what he ended up doing was, he is pretty much a hustler. So he ended up talking to about 200 podcasters almost as part of his initial customer discovery. And after we came on, we spoke to another 50 to 100 people as well. So really, absolutely agree with Kiadi on what she said about customer discovery. It is an ongoing process. You will keep learning more and more about them, and that is what will keep driving your product as well. So as far as initial selling points go, when you have the initial customer discovery, one thing you want to make sure is that you let the potential customer take the lead on talking. Hear what they have to say and keep your questions short and crisp is something that we found really useful, because you have to understand, like, when you mark them as potential customers, in our case, podcasters, they know their craft better than anyone else, and they are the ones you are selling to. So you want to hear from them what really drives their creation, what opportunity gaps they have, in their experience, and that's the opportunity that you guys find as a company, and you want to build on as well. So yeah.
Kind of like adding on to that, one thing I heard recently, which I think is like something we inadvertently did at Gatherly, is like, you should never tell no when you're at like you should never say no when you're at a very early stage when it comes to like, hey, can you like sell me this feature, like build me this feature? Instead you should try to make the client say no. So if they ask you for some crazy custom feature, just give them a price tag. Be like, yeah, we can build it. We can give it to you for this much money, right? And then, in some cases, if you say something obviously extreme, the client's going to say no. But that kind of enables you to, like, I think it's kind of similar to the example, leaning back on what John said, with like pulling out the square thing and asking people to pay for it. Like, if people actually give you a number, then they're more likely to pay for it, especially if that's something they've directly asked you for. Like, I gather there's been many, many times where we've built things for like individual clients, and then we go back and we're like, that was a horrible decision. Now we have to maintain this thing, and like we have to go back and deprecate features and whatnot. That's like actually what I was doing earlier today. I was making a list of all of our deprecated features that we're no longer going to support. But like, at the early stage, it's super helpful for getting those first clients, which, as I think has been mentioned, are the hardest clients to get.
Yeah, and then as we did the Square Reader thing, we always kind of conjoined that with our customer discovery. So like as we were talking to people about customer discovery, the end was always buy it. And so, but I think another important thing was just trying to figure out who is the archetype and how do you find that person? So for you, it might be people that use productivity software or use multiple productivity softwares or whatever. And so I guess the question that I'd be asking is like, how do you find those people? And so we leveraged the Georgia Tech network a lot. Like if we were ever doing anything with like trying to do partnerships with repair shops, or we would always, so the Alumni Association maintains a database of alumni and what their jobs are and what companies. And so maybe try to look in the alumni database for product managers from tech. And using tech is like almost everybody that we emailed and we're like, hey, you went to tech, we went to tech, can we talk to you? They almost all said yes. And so it's like who used productivity software, like engineers, product managers, I don't know, marketing teams, or come up with your personas of who you think might do that. And then try to find those people, whether it's on LinkedIn or whether it's through friends or referrals or whatever. But yeah, I think finding those early people just to like either get on the phone with or get on a Zoom with or see them in person is invaluable.
Just to add on to something John said initially, it was get them to pay as soon as possible. That is actually very important if you want them to pay for your product. And another thing is you should have a very, very good reason to increase the price of your product. So you almost never want to do that without an extremely good reason for it. Like, are you offering something additional for this higher price? Like, why would someone who's paying $15 a month for this want to pay $20 a month now for this? So even a small change in price can lead to a very, how do I put this, like large change in attitude towards the product. Like, I don't want to buy this anymore. So it's very difficult to maintain that as well in the market.
And that's a huge indicator of if you have product market fit. Yeah. Like if you could double the price of your product and people still buy it, you like golden. Like there's a term called wholesale transfer pricing power. If you have that, you can go to the moon. But yeah, if like you're having a prayer session before you raise prices, it's like probably not. You're probably in a competitive industry that is pretty tough.
Yeah. And one other thing that I kind of wanted to add was, especially for the first few people you talk to who express any interest in your product, I would say that those are probably not the people you're going to make money from, that you want them to be your early adopters. So maybe try to cater to them, maybe like Sohan said, maybe build out a feature for them. Or if it's possible, depending on your costs, maybe give it to them for like reduced price or for free. Because if they use it and they like it and they tell 5 other people, and if that keeps happening, then you're going to see some organic growth pretty quickly.
Yeah, and free trials are great because one, you validate do they use it, and if they're not using it, they're not going to pay for it. So it's like, be like, hey, like use it for 30 days for free, and it's $5 a month or whatever per user after. Usually people will try it out. But retention is the key in all of those things. Like if people don't come back to your product, you got nothing.
Thank you guys so much for that. Yeah, no, if anyone wants to use it, I'll give it for a coupon. Exactly.
I had one question. So for all the panelists, what is like one piece of advice that you guys have to student entrepreneurs, whether that be on how you can leverage your like student status in your startup or like balancing school and startups?
I'm actually currently taking a couple classes along with working full-time at Gatherly. So I guess one of the biggest things is you just have to prioritize really where you are. So something for me is like while I'm taking classes, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not taking super like work-intensive classes or, important classes so I can still, not like kill my GPA, but at the same time, I'm able to put the majority of my focus in my work. So that's one thing. Another thing that I've seen is you're definitely gonna, sometimes feel a little bit like, I guess, backlash for lack of better terms when you're talking to clients. Maybe they're less likely to take you seriously because you're like a college kid. They think that, oh, like this is a cute project or something. Like I'm not gonna pay money for this. So really, you're just trying to prove your product's worth. So that's first thing. So let your product speak for itself. Have especially have it look professional, things like that. But then at the same time, there will be some people who can use it you can use your status kind of as a leverage. I know that especially with a lot of my higher ed clients, they love the fact that I'm a college student. You know, they love the fact that they're supporting this small company that was built by college kids, because that is something that we're very close to, and so that's actually helped me, you know, increase sales, and I just kind of leverage that. But I guess it's just like a fine line. Just know your audience. You know, if you're talking to like big corporate executives, you probably don't want to come to there saying, "Hey, what's up?" Like I'm a sophomore. But then if you're talking to someone who else is also in the higher ed space, then you know it's always good to kind of build that bond.
One thing that we always did was just like, there's this autobiography by Steve Martin, the comedian and actor, and his whole thing was like, be so good that they can't ignore you. And so like our thing was like, if we were going into meetings with executives or people that were way older than us, it was like, we had to be like 100% on sharp, like everything buttoned up, because they also, like, people that age probably have kids your age, and like they have their perception of like what their kid is doing. And so if you just come and blow them out of the water, they're like, wow, this person is special. And so that's kind of like the first thing. The second thing is using your student card to get into meetings you have no business getting into. And so like an example, we wanted to have partnerships with auto parts retailers because we thought, hey, they'll give it out and people will buy parts to the app. Didn't work out. But the first one we approached was Pep Boys. So we cold emailed the CIO of Pep Boys and we're like, hey, like we want to talk to you about this thing. And he took the meeting. He was like, cool, let's have a call Tuesday at 10 a.m. And so we flew to Philadelphia, and like 30 minutes before the meeting, we were like, hey, we're in town. Can we meet in person? And he was like, yeah. And so we showed up at his office, and then like we had prepared all night for this thing. Like we had this deck and everything, and we walked him through it. We didn't have a product at that point, but he was like blown away by it. He was like, guys, this is incredible. Like I have kids your age, and like this is awesome. So like, let's do it. And so got us a meeting with the CEO. So like being so good that they can't ignore you, using your student card to get into meetings you can't get into. And then I think the other thing that definitely was really frustrating for us was just like, when you start out, if you have co-founders, make sure that everybody's on the same level in terms of expectations of commitment. It is just like very painful and very, very frustrating if that is not aligned. And whether it's someone's taking full-time classes, someone's taking part-time, someone's doing it full-time while others are doing school, people have extracurriculars that they're committed to, just making sure that you're all on the same page with whatever level of commitment that is it gets rid of a lot of animosity and stuff towards like your fellow co-founders. And yeah, I think that's just super important because it can be really, really frustrating putting in like your heart and soul into something and then having other people not do that. And we had a mentor when we were in school that really articulated this well for me. And because everyone will tell you they're committed, but the thing he like communicated to us was that people's actions show their priorities. And so like if someone's like, oh, this startup totally is like super important to me, but then they're like, oh, they go on a date night instead of coming and working late at night, or they like don't show up to a pitch competition they're supposed to go to, or like whatever. That stuff just like their actions show their priorities. And so, because no one's going to tell you like, ah, yeah, like I'm not super committed to this thing. They're all going to be like, yeah, like I really want to be involved. This is like super important to me. But
yeah, well, all great points, especially what John said about like actions and priorities. That is very important as far as like a team goes, especially the initial team. So on the other side of things is also the fact that this is a very high stress environment. It's also going to be very mentally taxing on you. So the thing you should always remember is like take a break if you want to take a break, and ensure that you are in good shape before, and your people are in good shape as well before that. Because as much as your product matters, as much as the value prop you offer matters, your people also matter because they are what make the product for you a thing for us. So like knowing when to like take a break, knowing when to say I'm going to step back for a bit and like take a breather on this is absolutely important because it's going to be beneficial for everyone in the long run. So like an example for us is that our CEO he actually has another kid on his way, and he's managing about 3 teams in Microsoft ATL right now. So it's a very high stress environment for him, and he had to take some time off to deal with some mental health issues. So And the best part about that was our entire team was for it. So they wanted him to take the break, wanted him to take time for himself as well. So that is something that is easily overlooked in startups, especially ones that are moving really quickly. So that's something which you should keep in mind. Like, no matter how fast we're moving, feet on ground, like think about what happens next, think about your people as well. So yeah, that's one thing. And that'll also help you when you get to funding as well, because when you look at VCs, more than product and market side, they also look at the people that you have. Like, what is the team dynamic? Like, are people like, how are people behaving with each other? Like, how have they behaved with each other? So they'll actually read you in the room when you do that. So it's important to maintain a good team dynamic at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think one thing I can add is like, again, this is one of those things that sounds probably very basic and cliche, but like you definitely just have to do the work. Like there's so many times where it would be questioned like why you're in the specific position that you're in or like qualified to make a certain decision, whether it's like an investor, like even like an employee that you hire that might be like more experienced than you. And like you quickly realize like that like as a student you don't have a lot of experience, right? Like at Gatherly, for example, in the last month we onboarded an engineer who has like 11 years of experience. He's got a daughter who's like 7 years old, and like he's technically a direct report to me. So when he asks me a question about some engineering thing, I honestly sometimes have no idea what I'm talking about because he has like infinitely more experience than I do. But like you constantly have to like keep in mind that like when other people are just gonna like stop doing work and like take it easy the rest of the day, if you do the same thing, you might be in a position where like it is your experience as a differentiator, right? So as long as you can do something extra, right? Whereas like whether it's like extra research, like finding advisors and learning from them, you need to go like the extra mile consistently. Otherwise, like it doesn't even make sense to, as a student, be a startup founder, to be completely honest. Like there are people out there that are like older than us, more experienced than us, you know, that this isn't their first rodeo, that have a lot of the kind of the expertise to back up their decision making. So if we don't have that as students, we kind of have to do extra things to at least fake it until you make it. Yeah.
And be honest to yourself about it. Radical transparency always helps in a startup. Like, if you can't do something, like immediately tell people like, hey, I don't know how to do this or I'm lost. Because I've dealt with that multiple times as a founding engineer as well, because the people we hire are actually 6-7 years older than I am and have like way more experience than I do. So you have to understand that even though you came in early, there is definitely going to be someone who knows something that you don't. And rather than looking at that as a sign of weakness in yourself, try to see how that could benefit the team. Like saying, okay, this guy knows this, or this person knows this, and how can we best leverage that instead? Like, how can I best leverage this for myself as well? Like, how can I learn from him? Yeah, it does sound a bit cliche, but the startup environment is so saturated now that we tend to overlook all these small little things that seemingly sound like cliches right now. So like, it's always important to remember the big picture and like why you're there as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for those answers. I think at this time, we're gonna transition into sort of a breakout room format where each of the panelists will be in their own room, and we'll rotate all the teams around so that they can get a chance to interact individually with each of the co-founders. So yeah, Viraj, do you wanna assign those? All right, we will
You
see
should
you
have gotten
guys
the
in the
invite
breakout
now.
rooms. All right, I think we're just gonna wait for everyone to come back in from their breakout rooms. I think Rabant has a few updates for the fellowship teams before we end this event today. So so yeah, we'll just wait for a few seconds.
Oh, I feel bad right now. I had two conversations going and I got cut off from both of them.
Breakout
Oh,
rooms
yeah,
are
same.
an absolute mess. We might have to schedule for the next one.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, and this is definitely an issue, and I know that Gatherly's kind of in this field, so yeah. So I guess I wanted to say, hey, welcome back, everyone, and I think I'll have to say that this event has been running super great. I personally have learned a lot from these amazing people, and I'm sure that the other teams have as well. Like especially with the perspective of being a fellow student or a recent alumni and learning about your journey through college. And I know this is kind of on the spot, but I wanted to kind of get like a last few words from each of the founders, some final piece of advice that you would give to yourself or just another student entrepreneur, like basically about your journey and what you would do or change or anything, maybe like something quick, 30 seconds. And also, I know Richard's on the call, so Richard, if you want to also give a quick intro about yourself to everyone. But yeah, if anyone wants to start off.
Sure. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I wish I had known kind of starting out was just focusing on retention. Like getting a product, getting it into people's hands. Like, do people keep using it, and do they keep paying you for it? If that's what your monetization model is. But I think people kind of lie to themselves and say that their product is great and it's doing all this stuff. But if it's not showing up in the data with the users, then you got to make changes. And so being able to, like all of y'all, I'm sure, are fully capable of iterating and getting lots of iterations and versions out there to try new things and try new experiments. But just being honest with yourself about where the product has shortcomings and the problem that you're kind of associated with. I wish we had pivoted a lot on that and kind of focused on that earlier.
I can go ahead and jump in. Yeah, I think so. Like people have this like fascination with like the stories of like Mark Zuckerberg, right? Like, and they think like if they go into the startup world, they're like, yeah, you'll be able to think of that next like billion-dollar idea and just go ahead and build it. But like, obviously, it's not that simple. But also like, it is not like you don't have like a high likelihood of coming up with an incredible idea yourself. At least like when you're first getting started, that's just gonna like hit a home run out of the park, right? So like, in order to like increase your chance of success, you just want to surround yourself with people that are constantly having good ideas that also want to like work with you on like something exciting. Like I think every single like startup or startup-ish project thing I've ever done, any of the ones that have like actually gotten any amount of traction, I was not the person that thought of the idea. It was like someone else, and I was like, oh shoot, that's a good idea. Can I please work with you on it? And that's exactly what happened with me with Catherly. So like, if you have this idea, because like I definitely did, of like, oh, I'm going to be the one that thinks of this great idea, and I'm just going to go with it. That might not come to fruition. So you definitely want to just surround yourself with people that are like also very innovative. Because sometimes like the person that comes with the idea might need like a really good executor to take it to the next level. And if you can even be that person, you're still like part of that journey without kind of like having this very idealistic like path in your mind of like, okay, everything's going to go a certain way. So yeah.
One thing real quick, I got to run to another meeting, but it's been great meeting all y'all. And if you ever want to reach out to me, it's john@fixedapp.com. So cool. Thanks for having me, guys.
Take care, John.
See you, John. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, like Sohan said, bullseye on that one. Know how to evaluate ideas more than coming up with them again, because odds are you won't come up with one that's extremely, extremely good without someone else. So, but yeah, I mean, as far as I know, I'm concerned, the startup environment is really, really saturated right now, and you will see a new blog post in some aspect of the startup every day, like something different about it, like, hey, doing this helped, doing that helped. You can get bogged down in the volume of information available, but just keep the big picture in mind at all times. Like, do the basics right. Like, when you're developing, if it's a SaaS startup, write code, but talk to your customers. Talking to your customers is something that applies to every startup, no matter what sector you're in. Talk to customers, know what they want, know what really makes them tick. The better you know your customers, the better your product will become. That's just, and it's a timeless rule of venture, so as always. So, but yeah, and beyond that, like, when not to discourage anyone from entering the space, it's more like before you start doing it, ask yourself and be honest with yourself about, like, is this really what I want to get into right now? Because know that the odds are against you. Know that it's going to be a long road ahead, long difficult road ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like to add that one thing to be kind of, on the lookout for is just be open-minded, because I think initially I came in together thinking that I'd be working on something, and right now I'm doing something totally different. So, I don't really see the parallel between like sales and mechanical engineering always in my, day-to-day life. But it's really interesting because I think that I've learned a lot about how to deal with people, which I don't think that my major is really known for. So if I were to go out, let's say, in the next few years and then work somewhere else, that's something new that I'm able to provide. And it's just something else that I'm able to add to my resume and, list of skills. So I think that even if it's not something that you thought you'd find yourself doing, don't say no, because it doesn't, it's not that it won't teach you, it will. Just will be a little bit different than what you thought. And then on that note, it's always good to stay connected. So, make sure that you're always building your network, you're getting to know people, especially right now with like Startup Exchange, or if you're in Startup Launch, that's already a fantastic start. So, I mean, you guys are already doing like, a great job for yourselves in that sense. But that being said, I'd love to connect with you guys. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop my LinkedIn in the chat. Any of you guys want to connect? I invite you guys to do the same.
Follow and do the same as well. You guys need to connect and talk about anything you want.
Looking at it myself. Cool. I guess I'll go next. Hello, everybody. I guess I have to do an intro. Oh, sorry. I accidentally clicked on that. I have to do an intro. So my name is Richard Lee. I'm the co-founder of Ranger. And it's, yeah, I think I won't go too deep into the product itself. So yeah, y'all should thank Yuma for telling me 4:45 instead of 3:45. But yeah, it's glad to see everyone here. So like the two things I would say is I really don't think about selling product often, because if you put all your time into product, you're gonna solve someone's problems, right? And I think every mentor I work with in the startup fields, like, focus on 2 to 3 people and worry about them. If your product's amazing, they'll talk about it, and they're gonna be the best marketer, because no one likes getting sales requests, and I get sales requests on LinkedIn like every other day. Be like, hey, I heard you need 30 more links. I'm like, this is bullshit. And I hated that. And number 2 is like, give back. Always give back, no matter at what stage you're in. Like, you're ahead of somebody, and giving back really helps. So the fun thing is, John from Fix, he was my mentor at Startup Lab 5 years ago. And I still remember the words he told me. And I was like, if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have gone the same route as I did. Because I remember one of our teammates would be like, hey, we'll just bullshit the data. And I was like, what the hell are you doing? It was like, you're like literally harpooning yourself. So like, don't lie to yourself about the products you're doing. Really give back to people. And essentially, like, by doing so, you're going to open doors that you would probably never even imagine that you'll get to have. And they'll be super down to help you in any way possible. And that opens another door that you have never seen. So like, really humbly give back. And I think that's my biggest thing for startups.
Awesome. Thank you so much to all the panelists, and it's all great advice. I truly appreciate you all for coming out today and sharing your stories. And I do apologize for going a little bit over time for this meeting, but yeah, and for the teams, do look out for announcements for this week. But big important things is that for next week, we have a workshop on creating business value and business thesis, but we're also going to be focusing on, I guess since we're getting halfway through the program, defining what your MVP is and how to go about building out your MVP for this program. And do be sure to catch up with your mentor sometime this week to get on a quick 30 to 45 minute call. But yeah, once again, thank you all for coming, and I hope you all have a great Thursday.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot, guys. Really enjoyed this.